Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to be here today to talk about a fascinating and often confusing topic. The title of our presentation is Why Do Women Become Addicted to Men Who Act Like They Are Nothing? We'll explore the reasons behind this behavior, the psychological factors involved, and what it means for relationships. Over the next few minutes, we'll uncover some insights that might help us understand these dynamics better. So, let's get started. Let's talk about the paradox of modern attraction. In today's dating landscape, one of the most interesting and counterintuitive dynamics is that women often find themselves deeply drawn to men who seem, on the surface, like nothing special. It's quite fascinating, isn't it? These men typically don't seek approval or validation from others. They aren't constantly begging for approval or trying to impress everyone around them. Instead, they stand confidently, comfortable in who they are. They also don't engage in people-pleasing behaviors, like bending over backward just to make others happy. They stay true to themselves and don't sacrifice their authenticity to gain approval. And this leads us to authentic boundaries. These men don't erase their quirks or compromise their boundaries just to seem more agreeable. They're genuine and honest about who they are. Strangely enough, this emotional distance, this sense of authenticity and independence, creates an aura of power and mystery. That's what fuels attraction. But why does this work? To really understand, we need to explore both the psychology of seduction and the human tendency toward insecurity. That's what makes this paradox so compelling and worth unpacking in the context of overall attraction strategies. When we meet someone we desire, our natural instinct is often to try to please them. We want to be liked, so we tend to exaggerate our similarities and downplay our differences. For example, if she says she loves dancing, we might insist that we do too, even if it's not really our thing. Or if she hates museums, we might hide our own love for art to avoid disagreement. Without even realizing it, both people can end up playing this game of self-editing, trying to put their best foot forward. On the surface, it might seem harmless, just two nice people trying to connect. But underneath, there's a more dangerous illusion at play. Neither of them is truly being themselves. Over time, this artificial harmony can lead to frustration because the genuine selves are hidden behind the facade. Eventually, the reality of their incompatible desires tends to come out, and that can create real problems in the relationship. This slide highlights how initial efforts to please can obscure true compatibility, making it essential to recognize and move beyond this illusion for healthier connections. Let's talk about the cost of self-erasure in relationships. Often, people find themselves in partnerships where their deepest needs, whether those are intellectual, emotional, or sexual, go unmet. Over time, they might wake up and realize that they were never truly compatible with their partner. Instead, they were together mainly to avoid rejection at all costs, which is a crucial point to understand. At the beginning, there's usually an initial attraction. This attraction is often driven by a desire to please the other person and, naturally, to avoid rejection. This sets the stage for a lot of self-editing and pretense, where we hide our true selves and even exaggerate similarities to match what we think the other person wants. This creates an artificial harmony, a superficial connection built on illusions rather than genuine understanding. As time goes on, frustration grows because those unmet needs and suppressed desires start to surface. And it's this growing frustration that often leads to an uncomfortable realization that the relationship isn't truly fulfilling. Eventually, many wake up years later to the harsh truth that they were never really compatible. They were simply caught in a cycle of avoiding rejection at the expense of their authentic selves. This highlights the importance of being honest about who we are from the start and understanding the real cost of self-erasure in our relationships. Let's talk about the allure of non-performance. When self-erasure leads to disappointment, it's often because we're trying too hard to please others. But what's fascinating is the opposite approach, the man who simply doesn't bend to everyone else's expectations. This kind of stance communicates something quite powerful. First, self-acceptance. He's not ashamed of his quirks or preferences. He embraces who he is, and that confidence naturally draws attention. Then, there's emotional independence. He doesn't seek approval from others to feel valuable or complete. His sense of worth isn't dependent on external validation. And finally, clear boundaries. He clearly expects his desires and his individuality to be respected. These boundaries aren't walls to keep others out, they're expressions of self-respect. Together, these qualities create a magnetic presence. They show that true strength comes from authenticity and self-assuredness, aligning perfectly with our broader theme of genuine confidence. Let's talk about the intoxicating strength of detachment. This stance can be incredibly appealing because it signals confidence and strength. Women often sense that a man who remains detached is harder to control or manipulate. It's that willingness to walk away rather than fake compatibility that really elevates his perceived value. In essence, his detachment actually draws her in more. It creates a dynamic where she's motivated to lean in, to understand him better, and to connect on a deeper level. She invests more effort because she perceives that he's not desperate for validation or acceptance. The key insight here is that his perceived value increases precisely because he demonstrates he's not needy or overly eager. This kind of calm, confident detachment can be incredibly attractive because it shows he is secure in himself. And that, ultimately, makes him more desirable. Now let's talk about the concept of addiction through contrast, or what I like to call the magnetic pull. Attraction actually thrives on contrast. When a man chooses not to play the typical approval game, he's breaking a pattern that most women expect. Instead of constantly chasing validation, he pauses, which creates intrigue. He doesn't pretend to be someone he's not. Instead, he reveals his flaws, showing authenticity over pretense. This honesty is what draws people in. And rather than begging to be liked, he assumes that he's already acceptable just as he is, confident in his own value. This shift from seeking approval to genuine self-assurance is what makes him more attractive. It's about breaking the usual pattern, showing authenticity, and confidently owning who you are. Those are the key points that really highlight how attraction works on a deeper level. Let's talk about the psychological loop of investment. When there's resistance, it actually creates a kind of feedback loop in our minds. It starts with her leaning forward, trying to decode his behavior, to understand what he's really thinking or feeling. This effort to understand ramps up her investment. Her emotional energy and focus increase because his unpredictability makes her try even harder. The more he withholds performance, whether that's attention, affection, or engagement, the more she tends to give. It's almost like she's trying to earn his approval or get a reaction. This cycle feeds itself. Her desire becomes reinforced as she continues to invest in the hope of unlocking his interest. Interestingly, women often become attracted not to cruelty or neglect, but to the honesty of non-performance. When a man acts like nothing, it signals that he's not desperate to be chosen, that he's confident in himself and not trying to impress. This perceived sense of abundance can actually trigger desire because it makes him seem more valuable and less needy. So, in essence, this psychological loop explains how resistance and ambiguity can deepen attraction. It's about the subtle dance of investment and perceived abundance that keeps desire alive. Let's talk about embracing the simplicity of complexity. The key lesson here isn't about playing games or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that true compatibility comes from being honest early on. That means being upfront about our differences, our passions, quirks, and values. Some women might walk away when they see the truth, and honestly, that's exactly what should happen. Rejection serves as a filter, helping both of us avoid years of mismatched expectations. Remember, you are complicated. It's okay. You have needs, boundaries, and desires that are unique to you, and you expect the same honesty in return. When we accept this, we create space for genuine connections built on truth. Embracing this complexity might seem daunting, but it's actually what leads to real compatibility and healthier relationships. So here's an interesting idea. Women are not actually addicted to men because they act dismissively or even cruelly. Instead, it's because those men embody a higher emotional truth. What does that mean? Well, it means that these men don't need validation to feel okay about themselves. They hold their ground, and in doing so, they teach a silent but incredibly powerful lesson. That lesson is that authentic love cannot be built on performance or trying to impress. It has to be rooted in the courage to be real, to show who you truly are, without masks or pretenses. And here's the paradox. Women often become attached to men who seem like they're nothing, or who act as if they need nothing. Why? Because those men remind us of something fundamental. Love should be based on truth, not illusion. It's about connecting at a genuine level, not through performance or superficiality. So this higher emotional truth highlights a core idea of the entire presentation. Real, lasting love comes from authenticity, from being brave enough to reveal our true selves.